Hi, I'm Rojo, and I'm going to be watching. Wait for it. Rogue versus Fnatic. The game 3. Uh, the one that ultimately led to Fnatic's 3-0 for this match. This was, I think, the closest game of the series, and I am interested to see why. I did watch it while it was happening, and it seemed very scrappy. Let's call it scrappy. So, going 1.5 speed, and first draft. So, draft is for Rogue very, very, very late game centric. You have Gangplank, you have Azir, you have Ezreal. All of these people are zone controlling late game carry champions that deal an immense amount of damage once you get 30 minutes into the game and on. Uh, Nothing really outpaces that, but you have uh, two more, I guess, frontline choices in the Set and the Braum, but they're low econ because they are jungler and support. The Set doesn't really play along with the Gangplank, the Azir, or the Ezreal, and the Braum, I guess, can be played as more defensively. They are going to be playing more front to back in team fights, and I think it's going to be a question of can they prevent Fnatic from getting into their team. There is a wrinkle. Uh, the wrinkle is Evelynn, who became fairly prevalent in game 1. I think it was banned in game 2. Self-made, then I believe played Karthus, and now he's playing Evelynn again. Evelynn is not actually the best pick in this spot. If you notice, Kog'Maw is going to be going AP, and Evelynn would rather be the single AP builder, single magic damage dealer on her team because it allows her to one-shot people who are not building any MR because the rest of their opponents are going to have armor, are going to have physical damage rather, building, and then they'll react to building armor. So even, and the biggest issue actually is that these are the two main damage threats from Fnatic. Senna is a damage threat, but she is more. She's not really a DPS threat, and in fact, I don't really think they have any actual DPS. I guess the best DPS threat would be Senna. I guess Kog'Maw. I guess you might count that. They're not really trying to DPS. They're really just trying to um, burst out very front end. If you survive, then you'll probably kill them because they're all fairly squishy after that. And Scion and the Nautilus don't really do anything if the rest of their team is dead. Scion is a very strong uh, quintessential tank, something that fell out of the meta, but you see here, I don't actually think it has a good matchup into Gangplank, by the way. I don't think that's supposed to be good. Matter of fact, I guess I can look at order of the draft and we can look at this more closely. The Scion was actually the last pick of the draft. Interesting. Oh no, it was the fourth pick of the draft with the Braum coming in last. So the last two picks for or sorry, no. It was the Evelynn came in last. So it was Evelynn. I don't think it was picked in a good spot here, and the Scion is like self-countered. I guess you could argue that he's stable and able to always do what he wants to do, just be a tank, be a good front line, and disrupt people from getting to his carries. But I don't know if that matchup into Gangplank is very good. And then you have the Evelynn when you're matched with a Kog'Maw is really weird because then everyone's just going to build a Merc Treads. And then you're going to have a Death Stance on this. You're going to have a Death Stance on this guy. You're going to have probably not a Banshees, but that doesn't matter, and I guess this doesn't matter either. So the carries are gonna have some. Does he build Banshees? Does he build Banshees into over? I wonder if you actually build Banshees on here. I feel like you don't, because it would stunt your build and it would take longer to get to where you want to be. I suppose regardless, the mismatch with these two is it's going to be problematic. But when the matchup for Kog'Maw is very good with Azir, I believe this is actually a really good matchup for a Kog'Maw. This is not a good matchup for Sion, and I wonder how this matchup is actually supposed to go. Then Nautilus versus Ezreal Braum. I suppose that could be something I look at in this game. I can't. It it's it's probably Ezreal Braum favored. So it is a little weird because Evelynn doesn't really have a super good place to go. Because Kog'Maw, while is a winning lane, doesn't actually provide anything in a gank for extra damage. The bottom lane is probably the best shot, but I would imagine it'd be fairly difficult to target Braum or Ezreal. I guess it's dependent on the situation. So I think that what Evelynn probably wants to do with this game is just farm, hope that her lanes can survive the lanes that Rogue have, and match the set ganks as they come out. That feels like he's going to be dead weight eventually, which is unfortunate for Rogue. But there's a decent amount of power late game that I don't know if it's necessarily relevant. As he can just be a CC bot, and he's probably doing his job just fine. I think that the way that Fnatic want to play this is make it so. I mean, they played it the Evelynn they played game one. They made it so that she would get an advantage, and then she'd be so dangerous that no one would actually be able to walk past a certain point, even within what would normally be safe ranges in lanes, because Evelynn can basically be anywhere on the map because they can't necessarily track her. The best way to do that, obviously, is to ward her camps because she stops being invisible when she's attacking anything. And then you can then play around her or stop her from farming if you can disrupt her early on, which is when she's most vulnerable. And frankly, while Kog'Maw might have a winning matchup or a good matchup for himself here into the Azir, I don't know if he's able to move super effectively, and then you have the issue of the other lanes being able to move because they'll have the priority. So I think this is a little almost disrespectful from Fnatic, but maybe I'm missing something that we'll kind of glean as the game goes. Last thoughts. I think the Fnatic don't really want to team fight. I feel like their team fight isn't super great. They want to set up fights and they want to be able to make sure that they're in a winning position on objectives and on before fights happen, so that they can use the living artillery. They can use the fear of Evelynn, and they can kind of poke slash heal up with the Senna. And then because they'll have the fear of the Evelynn as well as a decent amount of engage with Sion and Nautilus, they can kind of pick and choose their fights how they want to. So I think that's the basic idea. They want to get to objectives first, which actually is something that Rogue want to do as well. So they're going to kind of be racing against themselves to get to where they want to be on objectives, because when Rogue is sitting on an objective, I think that they'll feel a lot better. The question is that can they feel good when Evelyn could always creep up, kill a target, and then you're sitting 4v5 with a Kog'Maw shelling out on you and a Senna making it very difficult for you to come in and do damage or try to return fire with Ezreal and with Gangplank. But I honestly don't know if the Nautilus is super great here. The Scion's okay, I think. I think the Scion's more passable than the Nautilus, even though Scion has... I don't think he has... I don't think he has a very good matchup into the Gangplank.
Of LEC Summer Playoffs. I kind of gotta say it, I'm not a fan of Rogue's draft.
Let's go.
I feel like that they've kind of
1.5 speed. I'm not sure why we're looking at the casters, but
I feel like the Fnatic's
they're looking great.
Everything. I feel like it scales better. I think it matches them in the lane. Like Reckless and Hylissang should have prio in this 2 vs 2. Nemesis should be able to match and outscale with the poke. They have backline access and threat with self-made.
All right. Well, Vedia says that Reckless and Hylissang should have prio. Maybe I was overestimating how much the Braum can do in this matchup, because I obviously Ezreal's not doing that much early on throughout the lane, so maybe it's a case of me overestimating Braum and underestimating Senna, because I think Senna surprises me a lot with what she can do. So this is not good. So they're going for a steal on the blue buff, but Evelyn can just do the wolves and then she can move to Gromp after they leave, because they're not going to stay and bother her there. Okay, then they're getting some good amount of damage. But then this is that damage, that return fire is what I felt was going to be the decider. But obviously because Senna is Senna, she can heal up. And then the this level 1. So now, I mean, anything I just said about this is definitely not true. Even if there was a hint of truth, I don't think there. At this point, it doesn't even matter. And then Inspired, by the way, does red and then just comes right back to this position, which is a very, very strange choice to make. He actually ends up doing a lot of damage in return fire, but they get 2 kills for themselves, and I think that first blood was given to Reckless as well, so everything is indeed going right for Fnatic, as Vedia says. So the reason why that play on the blue buff doesn't really make that much sense is because Evelyn can just take the wolves, and then Inspired has to leave. He's gonna leave unless he's very aggressive and tries to do Gromp, but then he's okay. Well, that's a little unfortunate, but because then Hylissang and Reckless would have the ability to walk over and prevent him from continuing to get any camps on Evelyn. And then Evelyn, she doesn't necessarily need the blue, and then she can move to her red side pretty much for free, because you know that Inspired would be on the red side for a little bit longer, and then he'd match over. But of course, I mean, the way that it played out, Selfmade was able to get a very early gank off. Also, because they effectively leashed him on the blue buff, he was level 3 to level 1 on the 2 bottom laners of Rogue. So that's also a bit of a problem.
To be fair, I quite like that from Reckless, because in my opinion, I think that if you have Flash in a position like that, you should be willing to say to your support, I think the roam is worth it if I lose my Flash. And I think that that's what the communication was there. So yes, Reckless loses his Flash, but I don't think it's the end of the world. The wave is stacking underneath his tower. He's going to be able to clear that one out. He's going to slowly push in their favor.
Reckless able to get a cull makes him very, very strong. Inspired is continuing to come back to this lane and try to do something. Obviously, I mean, there's no camps to do, so I guess you could argue that's not the end of the world, and he probably doesn't have that much to buy here, but I don't know if this ever works. This was the weirdest thing when I watched this live. He straight up ran it down. Like, there's no way you could even explain it anything else. Finn straight up just ran into Scion and killed himself.
And it's time and time again that he's finding these solo kills, and you just can't afford to have that happen against Whippo.
And while that's happening, Reckless and Hillsang survive the gang combat. They even fought Inspired out.
Like, why is Gangplank?
already here in game 3?
First of all, why is he? Why was he down in farm? I mean, that was partially because he just died, and he was probably going to be up in farm if he didn't. But he just runs into Scion, and we'll see the replay.
Selfmade to Inspired is basically a whole level. Look at Selfmade, he's just about to tick over to level 6. He's gonna clear
Selfmade is very, very strong. He has the runic echoes already at 7 minutes. That feels very good.
I think he's gonna give it over.
He will do the dragon for free. She doesn't actually have any camps on the other side of the map to get. She has Gromp, but she can turn around and get that once she's done with the dragon. I mean, he's straight up just... He just straight up runs in there. The observers decided to give him a little bit of a scrolling action.
Zooming in and out, they're like, I don't know what's going on right now. Like, I think that, like, it speaks to the way Rogue have performed over this best of 5 series, right? Like, they've looked indecisive, they have made mistakes that we wouldn't have seen from them in the regular season, and they are getting slapped around by Fnatic, who, coming into this playoffs, were the clear underdogs in this matchup, but now are showing why they are so...
I really gotta stop underestimating Senna. And, so Selfmade is healing himself quite a bit. Ends up getting the Emperor's Divide out of Larson. Larson actually ends up running away. I think eventually, yeah, Senna also hits him with the... whatever her ult's called. I actually forget what it's called. But they are going to go for this Herald by swapping the bottom lane up from a reset position, from a neutral position in the bottom lane. Fnatic should be able to get this for free. Shouldn't be any problems. Then Reckless and Hillsang are going to move to the top lane. It's going to be a swap of the two lanes, I believe. Whipple maybe looks for something, but Finn obviously goes back. Recalls, and then he's going to look either... He might actually move mid. Depends on... No. He moves bot because Larson is going to move back mid once he's done pushing the wave in. Or he runs it down again.
That's just bad from Fnatic, let's be honest.
But also, Fnatic kind of needlessly aggressed onto that. I don't think they ever needed to do that.
The hook went one way, the side ultimate went another way.
Hang on, Selfmade is in lane.
Reckless.
Selfmade is trying to be cheeky.
Oh, Whippo, round 2? No, he's teleporting ball.
Perfectly fine. Whippo's now in the bottom lane. Finn is moving down to the bottom lane where he probably should have been the whole time. And frankly, I don't know if Fnatic should have done the dive either. It ends up being really weird for both teams. Selfmade still has the Herald who can just spawn it to kill the top lane. I wonder if that is going to be the play. You also could use it on this tower as well, so there's not really any urgency to use it anywhere, and Finn is just he's having a lot of fun with that. Selfmade spawns the Herald, and then he moves over to look for Finn. I think he actually... Oh, no. He doesn't kill him here.
His ultimate's going to be soon. He can look to reset, he can look to go mid, but now that Sound doesn't have to sit in lane and they can push this wave all the way out, they can look for plays. Larson going to be forced to disengage, but keep an eye on Selfmade roaming into the mid lane.
Selfmade's coming up. Hillsang hits the wall with the hook, has been very on point.
Kog'Maw being able to pretty heavily outrange Azir, especially as the lane, as the game goes on, is where he gets a lot of value.
I don't know if I'm alone, and you're not.
No, there's always someone hiding.
Selfmade is very aggressively able to move around. I mean, I could definitely see Rogue trying to go for that invade, but the invade didn't make sense because Evelyn had an answer that wasn't going to require any, wasn't going to make her super sad. She's still going to get camps on her blue side and still be able to farm up just fine.
Tries to get the push off. Mountain Drake has spawned and Fnatic will go for it. Second dragon of game for them. First time this series.
Fnatic actually go for the second dragon because they had the priority on it after the wave was pushed in by the Herald and Scion. As well because, I mean, mid lane being messed with by Selfmade makes him so that he can just go to any camp, basically. I mean, you can actually see it right now. They're kind of messing with each other. Actually didn't pay attention to who got the camps over there. It's a little greedy by Fnatic. I don't think they need to do this because they're both trying to scale. I didn't even mention this. I actually don't know Scale's dead. It's probably Fnatic. Especially if we're not going to build any MR, by the way. I don't know why those are Swifties. Those should 100% be Merc Treads on the set. I'm not sure what what slows he's trying to prevent. There's a slow.
I don't know, the blue side bans didn't seem
You
to
know
be
what?
that much for Rogue, whereas against Odoamne,
No.
Orome, and
It should be
Wonder,
Merc
the other
Treads.
top laners left, so you can abuse as hard as you want.
Nemesis is a little far forward, and Selfmade not really able to help him there. He actually missed the Dawning Shadow, that's what it's called. Thank you, Metacast.
Doesn't pick up the kill, but oh no.
He's at a level disadvantage. He does have Runic Echoes and a needlessly large rod. He tries to get the damage down.
He does put in a lot of damage. Probably needs to be careful because Finn could return fire at that point. Cyan is actually being as annoying as possible by pushing in the bottom lane. Not able to get the Herald. I wonder if it's going to actually be an objective that either team is going to go for.
I think it is also fair to
If anyone goes for it, it's probably going to be Fnatic. But I don't know if they necessarily need to go for it.
They didn't need to force. They weren't playing around the compositions, win conditions. That seems to be very clean right now. So even though there's still some questions on.
So what do they want to do with this? What would they want to do with this Herald if they have it? I mean, all tier 1s are basically dead. This is dead. So do you just spawn it so that you can get rid of it off of the map and then just maybe claim a bit of extra gold or get a good charge off? I mean, at the end of the day, it's free because they're not really aggressing onto it, and Selfmade will be able to go to his Raptors, Wolves, and then Gromp if he wants to be efficient, or he can mess around with Inspired as Hylissang is for some reason. He was doing it alone, but it's fine. Ends up getting it.
Just trying to force way too hard there, especially without needed information. The thing is that Rogue's lanes
So this is a very bloody game so far, but it feels like Fnatic are still getting the better of basically everything, and Whippo literally just ran into people. People are just running into people for no reason, by the way.
Hey, Whippo, vision control in the blue side jungle is very vital for us right now.
I mean, Hylissang was running into someone, and then Inspired decided, oh, you wanted to run into me? I'm going to run into your team. And then Whippo was like, alright, I'm going to meet my team. Oh, I ran into the whole... Okay. That was a very weird sequence. That was very unclean. Not bad. Kind of bad. But it was unclean. Especially with the dragon spawning, you'd rather have the ability to move around the map without any problems, but I guess Whippo dying doesn't actually affect the dragon, right? I mean, it didn't affect the dragon in this case, but I wonder if in a more neutral position it does actually affect that dragon. Probably does. They're very aggressive. That was a very interesting TP. I mean, you're actually allowed to do this. Allowed, because the timer does not have the Baron up. You do end up losing the mid-tier 1, but it's not super high value. Doesn't really matter that much. I mean, what are we doing? I mean, we can clearly see there's no actual plan with the Herald. They got the Herald because it was free and it didn't really disrupt anyone. But
and Finn has been the big beneficiary of all of these kills. And yes, that does help this game plan kind of climb out of the hole that he's put himself into. But to be very frank,
Finn has gotten so many kills. Basically, all of those errant kills that randomly happen.
Balls in your court, buddy.
But Fnatic being on soul point is really, really dangerous. I mean, it's basically a nail in the coffin if they get soul, because there's nothing that Rogue can really do. Because then, I mean, the scaling, if there was, even if there was a bit of a disparity, maybe you could argue that Rogue's composition scales better. With the Ocean Soul, I mean, that doesn't matter anymore. Especially because it was fairly even if it was arguable.
We did after game 1 say, hey, Rogue, just ban the Lucian. Just get rid of it.
I mean, it turns out I was wrong. You also need to ban
Exactly.
Evelyn.
Like, you gotta ban Lucian, you gotta ban Evelyn, because Fnatic are turning up the tempo. 5 turrets to 2, 3,000 gold lead, and now I have 2 minutes left on the Ocean Dragon.
What am I listening to? What is that? What are those in-game sounds that are going off right now?
Not just our first place consistent team, but someone that you were excited to send to Worlds.
I think I was
Whereas
listening
on
to
the other
like a
side,
Zero
Fnatic
audio
face
while
being
we were
over and
walking.
Kansas
It doesn't
actually
matter.
have the playoff. The answer is absolutely. Oh my god.
Yep. You know, I was a
So,
bit of a doubter.
2 minutes
I expected
until
Worlds
the
to come in
Dragon.
strong,
As you can
right?
see,
Team
Fnatic
Fnatic
setting up
versus-
fairly early on. That is very weird. Does that guarantee them Dragon if they get that?
That was as anticlimactic as Mad versus G2.
Over this series.
Wow, you guys are brutal today. All right, fair enough. I'm just going to move us along. Fnatic still sitting with a convincing lead right now.
So Fnatic are sitting around the Dragon side for Rogue, which makes it very difficult for Rogue to come in. Of course, they don't even necessarily want to come in because Evelyn is a problem that they do not have vision of. And they can't really get vision of because how would they ever do that?
I don't want to face check an Evelyn.
We also don't really have great champions for face checking. You basically have to
It's
send
true.
you send Inspired in there and you're just behind you like, okay buddy, it's all you.
Selfmade is basically the all of the reason why I think that Fnatic's composition scales better. I mean the Kog'Maw's obviously strong, it pretty much matches Azir in power, late game, but then the Evelyn really tips it over the top.
Selfmade's actually on the top side of this. Fnatic might just go straight to the Baron. They have a Cog, they have a center, they have a lot of damage.
Absolutely what they're doing, but the same problem still exists. Rogue needs
They
to
definitely do not want to trade this at all. There's no reason why you'd want to trade the Ocean Soul for a Baron. Also, they're not even going to get the Baron because they don't actually do it that fast. Because they don't have true DPS. They're being very aggressive here. This does end up, I think, working out for Fnatic. Hylissang did go into the front line, and then they kind of chased Inspired for some reason. I feel like they could have probably stuck with attacking the front line, Inspired, and just assume that Inspired is just dead. Doesn't really matter. This ends up working out decently. Just for the record, that Hex Trigger doesn't make any sense because of how Evelyn's ultimate works, so I'm not sure why that's being bought. Selfmade actually does lose the smite.
an absolutely hero play there from Rogue.
And then
Now,
Reckless
Arsenal get cleaned up on the
and Nemesis try to clean up. I think this ends up being pretty bad for Fnatic, but then all the Fnatic come. Why are they? This is so weird, right? I don't think they actually need to be this like randomly aggressive. It's not random. There's reasons for it, but they're like fighting fights that don't need to be fought.
Rogue barely survived with their lives and with the lives of this series. They managed to outmaneuver it. They survived the mid game or the mid lane fight, and then also steal away the Dragon Soul to buy Larson some more time to find.
And I mean, there's right there. I mean, there was no reason for Fnatic to move toward the Baron when they could have just gotten position on the Dragon, which is one far easier objective to take, and two gives you a permanent buff that effectively makes you win the game much faster than Baron would. And even if it was a question of, oh, if we take the Dragon, they'll take Baron, I would always take Soul over Baron every single time. You'd probably even take Cloud Soul over Baron.
He no longer has the same just raw damage outburst. I'm very nervous.
Yeah, I think we all are. As Reckless steps forward, takes a little bit of chunk.
So, I mean, you can see that there's a bit of hesitation with the way that Rogue want to play. Rogue are playing this fight very well because, again, we're seeing this really unnecessary fight that doesn't need to happen. I actually want to see a replay of this because I don't know. Oh, but then Selfmade. Evelyn is a very strong champion.
But for the moment, Rogue will back away, and I don't think Fnatic are going to turn their eyes to the Baron quite yet.
And I can't really do anything from that play. I'm actually really curious as to how that place went. So if they could give me a replay, that'd be great. I'm staying true to the no pause.
Every time Rogue tried to then chase down the Kog'Maw or the center, Evelyn is lying in wait. The second you overstep, there's the risk of you getting executed, and Kog'Maw does such a great job of just keeping you at arm's length.
Rogue are a team that have so strong fundamentals that they'll always go back to mid lane priority. And again, everyone knows that. It's like the bread and butter of League of Legends. And so constantly, Fnatic are just challenging them on trying to force mid priority, getting these engagements, and seeing who that they can pick off, what flashes they can get to make it easier the next time they look for these fights. I think the teams need to
We're
be more
not
creative
gonna
about
get
playing
the
these sidelines, which
replay
we are
over.
starting to see to some extent.
Gangplank actually goes for the Leandries. It's not the highest damage for his kit overall, I don't think. But it makes his ultimate do an immense amount of damage, like ridiculous amounts. I actually am really curious if it is the highest damage build. I think because his play pattern, it depends on what you're asking for him, play pattern wise, right? Because yeah, even with poke, I think that it's probably better, right? Even if you were trying to zone control using his barrels, generally the threat is the poke of the barrels.
The tick damage is so powerful with your ultimate. You have a lot of shots coming out quickly, so you can stack up the madness. It's pretty common.
I still think I think overall it is not as strong as the regular, more crit-oriented. Oh, and then we have a fight for some reason. This is a second before the dragon. I mean, they were. I guess you could argue that they were trying to recontest their position over here, but I think they can wait it out a little bit more. Self-made being kind of this mysterious threat. This might be a little unnecessary. Could be, yeah.
He pays for it with Finn's alive, but Fnatic lose one, lose the dragon for the second time in a row, and Rogue are able to get out.
Ends up being a 1-for-1, and Rogue is still relevant in this game. They are making Fnatic work for that 3-0, and they want to showcase that they can.
So it feels like Fnatic aren't really setting up the fights the way that they probably want to. They're kind of just overly aggressing onto their position. They're just saying they're like standing their ground when they don't necessarily need to stand their ground. We're gonna get a replay of that fight at least. It seems like a pretty important fight. I think it's worth a replay, right? Unless replays are just broken. Were they just broken for this game?
Because of how often you spam your abilities, blue buff is really important, especially in these extended fights. So Fnatic couldn't properly utilize the poke of the Cog to its maximum extent because Nemesis had to be really cautious about how he was using his mana. I think in the upcoming fight, that's also something to note, considering he will likely have the death cap as well. Because the scary thing about Cogmore is, like, Azir kind of gets to a point where he's definitely very strong. And on many AP champions, they get, stronger the more AP that they build.
I'm actually just listening to Vedius now.
I'm
listening to the insight.
Level of power because of how well or how much damage his ultimate can do and how well he scales with levels. So I feel like the next Drake fight, the next Baron fight, the next fight, Nemesis is the player to watch because he can do a lot of damage if it weren't for Vander's shield there. Just look at this.
This is all fair. So I mean, they're recontesting this area, and I'm really hesitant with the way that Fnatic have been playing, where they are really willing to pull the trigger well before the fights seem to want to be done. Because you'd imagine that you'd rather play it so that Self-Made either immediately kills target.
Could flash the wall, decides against it, hits another mystic shot, though Self-Made is down to 200
probably should have flashed the wall. So, I mean, if you flash the wall here, you at least force the flash from the Evelynn, who did not flash there. And then you actually end up dying from this fight.
Last caress from Self-Made alongside the damage from Reckless will make it 4. And Rogue, they tried as
Finn tries to cut the wave to prevent Fnatic from being able to get as much as they can. I think this actually ends up being the game because Hylissang finds Finn and then prevents him from teleporting or returning to the fountain.
In fact, even stopping his base. Fnatic, you can never count them out. They outlast Rogue and they
bam. So I'm actually gonna go back over those fights. So no pause, but I can go back at the very end. If I can find dragon fight. So here, the setup is they started the dragon for some reason. I'm not sure why they started this, because they're not really using poke that they have from these two champions, and the fear of the Evelynn when they're doing that, because Evelynn is going to be spotted because she's attacking the dragon. Which is why Finn walks in and can disrupt Self-Made, even though Self-Made's should never lose the smite because of his ultimate and the smite combination, which does like 2,000 damage or something. So this fight goes, and then Bwipo's frontlining. He's not really able to do anything. And then the back end of this fight, you have Finn is on the inside of this.
Well, Selfmade has to use the ultra spike in the pit. It's still away once again. Inspired gets it.
Finn
He pays through with Finn's alive,
does
but
die.
Lose one, lose the dragon for the second time in a row, and Rogue
Inspired actually
are
gets
able to get
out.
Ends up being a 1-for-1, and Rogue is still relevant in this game. They are making
Inspired was able to get the smite. So I feel like that was a little too hasty. I think that's the issue. I think that's the issue. I think might be a bit of impatience from Fnatic. See if I can go back to that other fight that I questioned. This one? I think it was this one.
I'm very nervous.
So right here,
Yeah, I think we all are. Reckless steps forward, takes a little bit of chunk from
why does Bwipo feel the need to go in? First of
I'm very
all,
nervous.
yeah.
so look at the position of everyone on this team, right? Selfmade is out in the wing, Hylissang's out in the wing, you have a core of 3, and then Bwipo decides to pull the trigger because he sees a minimum 2-man ultimate, maybe 4 if they decide to sit in the same spot. But there's no actual... If you look at the health bars across all of Rogue, the damage hasn't really come through from Kog'Maw. The damage really hasn't come through for Reckless. So there's nothing that they're actually prepping them. The preps aren't there. They're not being ready for that. But Bwipo just immediately goes in, and then, as you can see, Selfmade is still not really in the fight. Hylissang's still not in the fight because Hylissang is way out here. I'm not entirely sure what logic was on this, but I guess it doesn't really matter. And then, of course, Selfmade can't really flank because Finn was guarding the flank. So that's why he's over here. I feel like you should be willing to say, all right, well, we're getting priority on mid, right? So why do we need to contest? Why do we need to fight them? I think this is it just adds extra variables that they extra volatility and extra variables that they shouldn't be asking for, right?
Shot, Vander on the front line, shows coming back, Reckless down to half HP, the Johnny Show's gonna shield him up at Vander, and Healy had the flank here, inspired force away, Larson stepping forward though, and Selfmade isn't gonna be able to get into this fight quite yet. Nemesis and Bwipo trying to defend, but Bwipo goes down once again, left alone by his team. He's gonna try and get some zombie form damage down, but Fnatic only have 3 members left alive, and it's Bwipo.
So I mean, Bwipo and Reckless end up going down there, right? And I mean, the cleanup is there. The cleanup is fine. Maybe Hansama probably shouldn't be going so far forward.
Both Falls Rogue are clawing their way back into this game.
Yeah, he doesn't have a reason to go that forward. No idea what that is about. Then if we look one last time, there was another fight. Was it this one?
You can see it's so hard for Hansama and Finn to do anything, but the TP's going to come in from Rogue. It's Braun going to join the fray, but this is an Ocean Soul. And Rogue, you've got to do something about it. Hansama has TP as well. Good back. The true shot barrage coming out. Vander, do you have the smite? He's trying to shift over into it. He's just used the heal. The smite will be available. Selfmade won't go down, but it's stolen as Hansama secures the Ocean Dragon. Vander takes the kill on Selfmade.
I mean, this is not the actual fight. It's actually before this. So why did Hylissang die? So Fnatic, I guess, I think it's down to impatience. They went for the Baron when, I mean, the dragon, you can't see the timer there, but the dragon is very quickly going to come up within the next, 15 seconds? 3 seconds right now on that. So the dragon is about to spawn, and they're not even halfway through the Baron. For some reason, they went to Baron instead of going for the position on the dragon. It feels like position, the physical position of the teams and the ability to be in certain spots has been a highly contested objective in and of itself, like a mini objective almost, which is what Fnatic have been and Rogue have been fighting over. The mid lane, I think Froskuren mentioned it, but then you kind of cede that position, and then you don't take the position on the dragon, and you say, all right, we're doing Baron. Seems a little suspect. Selfmade going for more cautious running away. Obviously, he doesn't necessarily want to fight the Baron. So here again, we see Bwipo going in. I'm not sure what the patient, where the patient just isn't there. I feel like if you look at the end game score, Nemesis will not have anywhere near the damage that he probably should during this game. Like that he's thinking, okay, I'm gonna pop off. This is gonna be a big game. I'm going to be doing a lot of damage on Kog'Maw. I don't think that's possible because he might be throwing out some living artillery on the back end of fights, but he's not getting to prep the fights the way that he might want to. And for some reason, Reckless chases after chases after Inspired instead of. I mean, maybe you already have you have these three who are the damage core of Rogue at full health. So maybe it's actually better for them to play it that way. But I mean, here it just seems really strange because then you lose out on Hylissang. You can't really use Nemesis's Kog'Maw to deal damage to prepare for the fight, and you're just immediately going basically as soon as you see them. It seems like a lack of patience. I mentioned that a lot, but I feel like that has to be it.
That's another kill, but here comes Selfmade with the Larson. Just needs that last caress. Nemesis will take the kill in the end, and Nemesis continues to rain it down hell upon Rogue.
I mean, you can actually see here the kill participation also. I mean, if Nemesis is actually allowed to prep the fights the way that he probably wants to, that kill participation skyrockets. There have been 10 kills in this game. He's actually been around quite a few of them. He's 1-1-3. He's at a 40% kill participation. So a little strange. Little strange.
And Finn have got to do something very special.
See if I can find maybe one more that'll maybe prove the point. Probably not. I think that's wait. This. So I think they just got the dragon here. They move up.
I will say I'm a little disappointed so far across the course of playoffs in Mad Lions, in Rogue. I was hoping this would be the split where we really saw.
And then they do this. What is that? What is this? Why does that keep happening? I mean, this is just a mistake. That's whatever. But why does Hylissang go for the hook?
That's the Fnatic I
That's very different from how this composition seems to want to go. I mean, they end up winning because they played out the last fight rather well. And I guess you could argue that Hansama maybe screwed up. If I can get back to that spot. If we'll ever get back to that spot.
I think, excuse me, I think one of the biggest things was that Kog'Maw didn't have blue buff.
So right here, Hansama finds Evelyn. 4 on Fnatic, sitting on the objective. I think ideally, wouldn't you rather have it the other way around? No, I guess not. I mean, if you have the other way around, if you're Kog'Maw, it's probably good because then he has fairly easy targets to hit because they're going to be corralled into one spot, right? So if Kog'Maw and like Azir were reversed, Kog'Maw can rain down living artilleries on Fnatic in this position. But I don't know if it's necessarily ideal because he's still able to hit them down. I mean, you can see them coming down as they approach. And then they have the fear of the Evelyn. So this is actually like okay, we have an objective. We are prepped on the physically. We can actually prevent them from coming into us. I mean, the issue is that I don't know if they necessarily need to start the Baron. Hansama actually almost kills Selfmade. I think that is probably a good argument for him flashing, because then Evelyn regens, and you can see her health ticking up, and then she can go on to Hansama rather freely. You at least force the flash if you use flash as Hansama. So maybe you could argue for the flash, and this combo ends up finishing Rogue because then Rogue doesn't really have a good answer. And Reckless is now at the point where he is dealing an immense amount of damage each auto.
Right there. He went over the wall. He was trying to find Selfmade. Thought, do I flash? Do I not flash? He waited for the E.
So, in conclusion, Fnatic need to be more patient. Rogue is still going to the World Championship. I think they still have a chance to actually still compete for the LEC title. Rogue are very good, and I mean, we saw this, or I saw this when I was looking at another Fnatic Rogue game during the regular season, where a lot of things are happening where it's Fnatic is doing something and then Rogue is responding well to it. Seems to be their forte. I don't know if they're necessarily the most aggressive team, Rogue, but their responses are good, sound. It's just that in this case, I think Fnatic probably outscaled them, and they were able to get onto their objectives, and the Evelyn was able to get up to her power points without really any stress at all. In fact, being given things. So I would like to see more patience from Fnatic if they're going to play compositions like this, but what can you do? I'm Rojo.